I am originally from Bihar, India, but I've been living in New Delhi for some time now. The incident I'm about to share happened around 10 years ago when I was just a child, about 9 or 10 years old. It was during the time we were preparing for my maternal uncle's engagement, which was scheduled just 2 days after Eid. The last few days of Ramzan were going on, and the house was filled with excitement and preparations. My grandmother, a deeply spiritual woman, was engaged in her nightly prayers, salat, tasbih, namaz, as she did during the holy month. One night, as she went into sajda during her prayers, something inexplicable happened. According to her, she remembers going into prostration, but has absolutely no memory of getting back up or what happened afterward. The family, however, saw something completely different. My grandfather and my aunt, who were present with her, told us that on Eid morning, she woke up, met everyone warmly, asked for sherbet and food, and went about the day normally. But as evening approached, her health began to decline rapidly and in a strange manner. It worsened so much that she began asking my uncle to call someone named Ruby. She was insistent and emotional about it. By the next morning, when we reached Putna from our city, where we lived, her condition had deteriorated to such an extent that she didn't even recognize my mother. She had stopped speaking, refused to eat, and seemed disconnected from reality, but we tried everything medically possible. Every test was done, blood work, scans, but the doctors only found a minor issue, fatty liver. Other than that, there was nothing to explain her rapidly declining health. She became weaker day by day, but at the same time, her body became so unusually heavy that initially, my mother and aunt were able to move her from one bed to another. Then it got to the point where even my uncle and grandfather had to help together. Eventually, it required 3 or 4 people, sometimes even 5, just to lift her. And mind you, she wasn't overweight. Her weight was normal. That's when we began to suspect that this wasn't just an illness. There was something unnatural going on. As things worsened, we reached out to a spiritual healer, someone with knowledge of the unseen, whom we refer to as a savant. My uncles rode their bike to visit him, and he prayed for my grandmother and gave them a protective talisman. But on their way back, in a forested area where no people lived, even during the day it was quiet, and at night completely abandoned, their bike broke down. When they finally returned home, the talisman was mysteriously missing, even though they had kept it safely. A few days later, they went back and brought another one, which was tied around my grandmother's wrist. Oddly enough, a couple of days later, while my mother was bathing her, the talisman had disappeared again. There were no children around who could have removed it, and the room she stayed in was far from the staircase. Yet strangely, the missing talisman was found lying on the stairs by my aunt. How it got there, no one could explain. At this point, our house had become a place of worry and fear. One particularly odd thing everyone noticed was a black cat that started appearing frequently, always near my grandmother's room. It would sit there and cry, long, strange cries that no one paid attention to at first. But as the events grew more disturbing, the constant appearance of that cat felt like a dark sign. We brought soil from the house to the Salim, and after examining it, he said something was wrong spiritually. He visited our home and then went to the garden. There, buried under the soil, he found a strange clay pot, the kind used in black magic rituals. That's when he confirmed our fear. Someone close to the family had performed black magic against us, someone who regularly visited the house. During her sickest days, my grandmother would talk about strange dreams. In her state of half-consciousness, she'd describe a Baba, a dark practitioner of magic, and said she saw a man, a woman, and their daughter going to this Baba together. According to her, they were the ones responsible. But once she recovered a little, she had no memory of saying any of this. When we asked the spiritual healer about it, He simply confirmed that what she said was true, but he wouldn't reveal who exactly had done it. He did hint that someone had wanted their daughter to marry my maternal uncle, and when our family rejected the proposal, they turned to dark practices. He advised us to take my grandmother out of the house. He said the magic had deeply infected the environment of our home, so we moved her to our city. Miraculously, within a week, her condition improved. She began eating again, talking, and slowly returning to her normal self. That was a relief, but didn't end there. There was another chilling experience that occurred in our Putna home. The house was divided. The women's area and washrooms were separate from the men's. My maternal grandfather normally used the men's washroom, but one night, perhaps out of distraction or worry, he used the women's side. As he was walking in the courtyard afterward, he noticed someone walking near an unused room. He thought it was my mother and called out to her, wondering why she was out so late. But when he came back inside, he found her fast asleep beside my grandmother. The next morning, he shared the story with the rest of us, and it became clear that something beyond understanding was at play. Not long after, another incident occurred. It was summertime, and my uncle had taken a night watch to care for grandmother, as we took turns. Around 3:30 a.m., my aunt woke up and offered to sit with Nanny so that he could get some rest. My uncle went to sleep outside in the courtyard. As soon as he lay down, he felt an overwhelming presence behind him, as if a woman in white was standing at his head. When he sat up in shock, the figure vanished. But when he lay down again, he felt something pass above his head, as if it flew over him. He was terrified. My mother told us later that on certain nights, my grandmother would become extremely restless. She'd say terrifying things like, "My soul is leaving, help me," and she'd cry out for relief. On those same nights, the sounds of crying cats and barking dogs echoed from outside, eerily consistent, loud, and unsettling. That's when it became undeniable that this wasn't a normal illness. Every medical test came back clear. The treatment she received helped, yes, but there were other forces, invisible and malicious, affecting her. Eventually, my maternal uncle, the one whose engagement we were preparing for, passed away. There's no doubt in our hearts that the black magic played a role in the devastation that struck our family. This entire experience left an indelible mark on our lives, and though we've tried to move on, it still haunts us deeply.